everybody. This is Emily here, and this is the Discover Fort Smith podcast. And today I'm here with Sara Strom. Sara, can you explain your title and what you're currently working on for us?
Yes. First of all, I want to say, Emily, thank you so much for having me, giving Fort Kids this opportunity just to share our mission and our vision in the community is such a gift. So thank you so much.
We're so glad to have you. We're so glad.
I'm the president of Fort Kids Children's Museum. We've been working for almost 3 years now on really creating a safe and inviting, inclusive space here in Fort Smith for kiddos and adults too of all ages to really come and connect through hands-on exhibits, getting to explore interests, STEM, everything from science, technology, engineering, mathematics. We're going to have an art studio in Fort Kids. We're going to have a playful town, so pretend play. So there's going to be a little something for everyone. Of course, Fort Kids was donated land down on the Riverfront by the Westfall family, and we're so grateful because we have a home. And we're working towards building on our home, but with it being on the river, we're also going to have a pretend river exhibit. So it's going to be a water play area for kiddos inside. And then we're also going to have a climber. So
It's just, I personally am so excited about this project. I think it's so wonderful. But before we dive into the museum itself and what's currently going on in the future of the museum, I would love to know your story and how you ended up in Fort Smith. Have you always been involved with children's museums? How did this come about? Can you share with us, a little bit about your story?
yes, I would love to. I never thought that I would be doing a children's museum. Truly, if you had asked me 5 years ago, even would I be here in Fort Smith trying to do a children's museum, I would say no. I am from Fort Smith. I'm so grateful to have grown up here. It was an incredible place. As a kid, I have developed lifelong relationships here, and when I moved away, I went off to college, and then I came back. And I got my master's in counseling here, and I was around the age of 30 at the time. I wasn't married yet, didn't have kids yet, and met my husband. We decided to get married and start our family. So I became a mom and a mental health counselor at the same time.
Wow.
And I feel like the two paths collided and created Fort Kids because at the time I became a mom, COVID was happening. So I experienced, not only the transition into motherhood, but I was alone. We weren't really going out of our homes. We weren't gathering at the library. My son at the time was too young to really enjoy parks because he was really young, and I was pregnant with my daughter as well, so we had to be really careful. So it was just a really interesting time, and I feel like we all experienced things in COVID that really showed us what's important in life and what matters, and what it showed me was how important connection is.
Yeah.
How much we need each other, especially with that transition into motherhood. I needed other moms. I needed other people. And so also with the lens of being a counselor, throughout my master's degree, I had interned several places. At the time, Boast had a school-based counseling program. And so I was in Van Buren at the elementary schools. I was at Freshman Academy, so I saw ninth graders there. And then I was at the high school. And then later on, I was at Hackett and then at another elementary school here in Fort Smith. So I had the opportunity to speak to a lot of different kids, a lot of different ages. And at the same time, I was also counseling adults. And what I found more than anything with kids, we didn't really sit and talk. We connected through play. And kids connect through play. So play is the language of a child until they're 7 years old. And so whenever I would come and get them, we would go outside and we would play together. And it was really important because that's also how they work through feelings. It's how they work through big feelings. It's how they work through small feelings. It's how kiddos process through trauma. So it was just a really wonderful insight into, these two parts of me, being a mom and also being a counselor, kind of coming together. And Fort Kids landed on my heart. And I sat with it for like a year. And I was kind of like, okay, what am I being called to do? And I put a Facebook post out, does anyone else think that there needs to be a children's museum here in Fort Smith? And there was an overwhelming response.
Yeah.
And that's really how our board was created. Just the people that responded, kind of how we came together. It started as a group of moms, and then it's expanded, and now we have a really well-rounded group of volunteers that are working really hard to build something in our community, by our community, for our community, that really highlights our community and is a gathering space.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it was just like a seed of an idea, and you sat with it, and then you just put it out into the world, and then people just came to you who had a similar passion and thought. That's
absolutely
amazing.
And I do feel that our community, we have just an incredible community. It's so supportive, and I feel that people truly see the need. They want it to happen. They want this to be built, and so we have a lot of support.
Yeah, that's great. And you said you already have the land, right? And it's over there by the Marshall's Museum, is that correct? Okay.
So
beautiful space.
In the process of kind of figuring out, where is our home? We looked at all different places in Fort Smith, from, out there at Chaffee to the middle of town to Garrison. And really, we didn't know that the Riverfront was an option. The Westfall family, they are so incredibly kind and generous. But Benny Westfall had been a part of the conversation really from the very beginning. He was the first meeting that I had regarding Fort Kids. And I just shared, I had this business plan that I took him.
Yeah.
And I showed it to him, and he was like, this is a great idea. And he really believed in the vision and me and our other board members right away. But I went to the 19 elementary schools here in Fort Smith because I wanted to talk to the elementary school kiddos and really have them give us ideas on what they wanted Fort Kids to be.
That's incredible.
But at one of the schools, Bradling Elementary School, the principal, she gave me a gift. And she basically told me, that downtown is the most accessible place for kiddos that are in need of enrichment such as this, and they need to be able to get there. And there's a bus route, that goes right there. And then also just the gift of that walkability too that we're getting in our community is huge. And so it just felt like a natural place to land. And so I called Benny after that conversation, and I told him about it. And basically, to make it as accessible as possible for all kids, we landed on the Riverfront.
It's amazing. Seriously, it's a prime location. There's the skate and bike park down there. So it's like you can go to the museum and then go to the park right after, or go to the Fort Smith Coffee Co. and the Marshall's Museum or something. It's great.
Yes.
And I love that you went to the elementary schools, because personally I feel, and I've seen it many times, having been an educator previously for years, the thoughts, the opinions, the feelings, the ideas of children are often overlooked, even when it comes to things that directly impact them. And so I think just letting them have a voice and expressing ideas to you about the museum, that's really That's amazing. I love that.
They essentially designed for kids.
Tell me about it. What were some of their ideas?
Well, they gave us the idea of Playful Town because I went to Ballman's second grade class, really honed in on it. But a lot of, what they had to say, they wanted a doctor's office. They want a grocery store. They wanted a lot of these pretend play elements that we're going to have in Fort Kids. But then, we went to other schools and they would talk about wanting an art studio or wanting that water play area, wanting climber, and we had so many great ideas. And I would actually, all of the kids, they were so into sharing their ideas. At one point, I was like, okay, you guys, you have more ideas, write it down and give them to me because we were running out of time. And so I have all these sticky notes full of their ideas, and they have the best ideas. And even talking to high school students, one of them gave me the idea for like a big marble run. They were like, kids love marble runs.
Yes, they do.
Have one. And so it's so interesting. Like you said, kids have a voice. Mm-hmm. They want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to feel, just as every single human being on earth, that they belong and that they matter.
Yeah.
And that's, the very heart of Fort Kids. It's giving kids a space where they can explore who they are and kind of help them to uncover these gifts that are within them. Because I truly believe that every kid has possibilities and opportunities and something to build, something that they're meant to do, something that they're meant to give to the world. They're here for a reason.
They are. And it sounds like you really thought intentionally about giving kids opportunity to explore a variety of interests to see, what do I like? What am I good at? What am I not so good at, but I still like anyway, But also giving them the opportunity to do things they see their guardians or their mom or their dad or whoever doing in real life, adults, like going to the grocery store and things like that. So that's super cool.
Yes.
Can you talk a bit more specifically about the current design for the museum and how, the strategy and the thought you guys put into the design and what all it entails?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So often I feel like kids are coming into this adult world. And like I said, the play is the language of a child, and up until they're 7 years old, like that is how they communicate. And so whenever a child asks you to play with them, it's actually such a gift because they're inviting you into their world. They want to show you their interests. They want to show you something that they're doing. And it's incredible because you get to see a part of them. You get to glimpse something within them that we may not get to see in our adult world because they're constantly trying to navigate that. They're constantly trying to navigate what it means to be small. And perhaps even, I know with my son, he's 5, and he really loves to do real life things. Like he wants to do the things that he sees me doing or my husband doing. Like he wants to be a part of that. And so Fort Kids is, especially our Playful Town, it's taking these real life skills, like you were saying, going to the grocery store, things that they see grown-ups doing all the time, and making it their size so that they can have their experience and have ownership, that child-led ownership over their experience and getting to choose. So like you said, not every kid plays the same way. Not every kid has the same interest. And maybe they're interested in something, but they feel like they're not good at it.
Yeah.
And so that's also at the very heart of Fort Kids is creating that resiliency, teaching kids it's okay to fail and to keep trying and to not give up. Sam Dean, he is the executive director of the Amazium, and I just saw him on a television show, and he talked about how children's museums are essentially helping to really inspire that entrepreneurial behavior, that entrepreneurship within kids, because it gives them that self-ownership And so, we're looking at having a little town so that kids learn about financial literacy. What does it mean to go open up a bank account? What does it mean to write a check? I don't know if our kids will be growing up and writing checks. Maybe that'll be a thing of the past. But, they still get to learn these life skills or credit card. Like my daughter loves to walk around with a pretend credit card.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And go to do things like going to the grocery store or playing in a medical office. She loves to play doctor. And, kids have dreams. Mm-hmm. They really do. And they know a lot about who they are. They know a lot about what they like, and they'll tell you. Yeah. They'll tell you who they are and what they like. And it's up to us adults to listen and try to capture these bits and pieces and help them grow.
Mm-hmm. And like mentor and guide. Yeah.
Yes. And so, we're also going to have a Tinker Space and Spark Space. So these are more of the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics spaces. We had a great conversation with the University of Arkansas engineering program. They were talking about how important it is to recruit people into their programming and to, but they found through research that it's really by the 4th grade, kids kind of decide whether STEM is for them or not. And a lot of them decide it's too hard. And so Fort Kids, I feel like, is a pipeline that could really help inspire kids to, keep trying, to keep learning, to keep growing, and that it's okay to fail. We all do. And just building that resiliency muscle, because the resiliency muscle, it is taught.
Yeah.
It's taught. Mm-hmm. We are resilient beings, but it's a muscle that you have to grow like anything else.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you're doing this thinking about what kids need now, mm-hmm. but also thinking about what they need in order to get them to become like productive citizens mm-hmm. in the world as adults too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that there is a hope that we really want to instill this love for lifelong learning. Mm. And that if kids know themselves, if they build that confidence, if they, attune to what they like and take ownership of it, that they will become adults, because we don't grow out of our childhood. Mm. Childhood stays with us, and we build. It's like a foundation, and we build those building blocks, and you're building, a child is building skills all throughout their life that will hopefully lead them to their path and what they're meant to do in this world. And so Fort Kids is hopeful to be a part of that, laying that foundation. Fort Smith Public Schools has wonderful programming, and we want to support that. We want to support literacy. Literacy is so, mm-hmm. It's such a huge factor.
It really is. It really is. Mm-hmm. It's the foundation of everything,
It's the foundation for everything. And it starts so young, and speech, all of those elements of speech, it starts with play. Yeah. Starts with play.
And literacy, I say it's the foundation of everything, but it's really language.
It is.
That's the foundation of everything. Because if you don't have the words, if you don't have the vocabulary, you might be able to read them and decode those words, but you won't understand what they mean. The language is what gives us the understanding, right? And they get that through play, for sure.
Yes.
So interesting.
Yeah. And speaking of language, we are so excited about all the things that Fort Smith has going on right now, including things like the F-35 program. And we know that families are going to be coming here to Fort Smith, and they may only be staying here a short period of time, but how cool would it be to, have a place to bring families of all different backgrounds, learning together in the same space, and I don't know about you guys, but I watch kids and they become friends like in
immediately.
5 minutes.
So true. Like adults, like we take time, but kids, it's like, you want to play? Yeah, I want to play too. Let's go.
It's very much like, you want to do this climber? Sure. I don't know your name, but that's fine.
Who cares? I don't need to know.
They find their own language, and the common language is play.
Yeah.
That is the common language. But, throughout Fort Kids, I think that we want to weave in, Fort Smith.
Yeah.
And really what it means to be an Arkansas trailblazer. I heard that phrase the other day, and I do think Fort Smith has all of these wonderful things to offer. And, Fort Kids has the ability to really expose children to more and hopefully offer a world of possibility. And, I think about, the kiddos in our community, and we have, a large population on free and reduced lunch.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they have the opportunity to go up to the Amazeum up in Northwest Arkansas, or go to the Discovery Museum in Little Rock, or go over to the Discovery Lab in Tulsa. Like, we want to create opportunities and possibilities here.
Yeah.
Here. And so there's, this, hope too that it will directly influence our economy, because if people are staying here on the weekends, going out and going to the Marshall's Museum, going to a play at the CSA, going to Fort Kids, going to have lunch, they're spending their hard-earned dollars here in Fort Smith.
Yeah. And that's, a huge part of what we do at the Convention and Visitors Bureau with Discover Fort Smith is we're a destination marketing organization. So we want to market Fort Smith as a place where, a foodie can come, a history buff can come, a family can come, a couple can come. And having a children's museum here is just an added bonus to our city. And it's not only is it wonderful for our residents and for the children who are in this area to have access to that type of play and that type of museum and the STEM lab and all of these things, but also people coming into Fort Smith from, surrounding areas from the region.
Yeah.
It's great. It's just wonderful. I'm so excited about it.
We definitely want to attract visitors here. And we want to also retain families. We want them to, go to work for ArcBest, ABB, Mercy, Gerber, all of the industry that we have here in Fort Smith, and, Baptist, all of our health organizations. Like, there are wonderful also family businesses. I think of Fort Smith, and I think of these family businesses that have been here for so long, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
I came from a family business here in Fort Smith, so that's also something that I think about. But, I have a few friends, who have family businesses. The kids went off to college and then they came back, and it's like, we've got to still recruit these families back here. It's also a legacy.
Yeah.
And we're hopeful that, part of the legacy lives within Fort Kids, the legacy that, of the people that have built Fort Smith.
Yeah. Well, and also you bring in a museum of this caliber, you bring in jobs too, right? So it's multifaceted.
It is.
The impact that it's going to have on the economy here. So it'll bring in visitors, it'll bring residents downtown, it'll add additional jobs. It's an additional attraction here. So it's wonderful. It's really wonderful.
Thank you. There's a lot of possibility.
Yeah.
There's a lot of possibility. And our mission really is to, build a world of possibility and connection through play. And we're so grateful that we are where we are today. And we are where we are today, from the people that are supporting us. And it is a very grassroots effort. And it's very grassroots. And so we're grateful for a community that's just as excited about Fort Kids, as our board.
Yeah. Well, we've talked, so I had a thought while you were talking earlier. We've talked a lot about the kids and how this museum will impact the kids and its purpose in their lives. But let's talk about adults.
Yeah.
Like, what is the adult's role in the museum?
Yeah. So the most important thing in a child's life for a long time is the adult in their life, or the adults in their life, and we think about this as a board, as a multi-generational museum. So people might be coming with great-grandparents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, their care providers, and getting to experience that connection with someone that they love and trust. And that's really important to build a child's confidence. It's really important to build a child's sense of self, doing something with the adult in their life and creating those memories too, that ultimately they draw on, perhaps, because we know that we can't protect people from experiencing things like pain and grief and adversity, rejection. All those things are going to happen. So if you have those kind of memories, those times where you felt a sense of connection, if you have those memories built up from childhood, you draw on those later in life. And they're really important. And, for the adults, from the adult perspective, it's so important for adults to connect with other adults.
For sure.
We need connection.
We're so disconnected, culturally.
Yes.
We're so connected in certain ways, but so disconnected in a lot of ways too.
Yeah.
And
I think face-to-face interaction, it's so important. It's so important. And being able to have somewhere where you can meet up with other people, it's really... I think it's what gets you through the transition, especially like if you're a new mom and maybe you're a new mom who connects with a grandmother at the Children's Museum who can say, hey, your sleepless nights, I've been there. You will get through it and I'm here for you. Like, let me get you a coffee. Or, you just never know. Or whenever I talk to Joe and we did his Arkansas Minds podcast, he was saying, even as a dad, connecting with other dads. Yeah. And I think too, especially in our busy world, just slowing down and connecting with each other, it's important. And it's a gift to all of us.
For sure. Totally.
And it really exceeds age.
It does. It definitely does. Because you can be any age and feel lonely or feel joy, or all the feelings are with us throughout our entire lives, and we always need connection throughout life. So can you talk a little bit about programming, plans for programming at the museum?
I love talking about programming because it's a world of possibility.
It really is.
But right now, Fort Kids is focused on being a museum without walls. So we're offering programming within the community already. And we've been doing it the past 2 years. It started out with a pottery class that we did where kiddos came in and they had these. Stephanie Pizza, she's an amazing artist here in Fort Smith. She's a potterer, but
Stephanie Pizza. What? That's amazing.
Yeah, she's great. She's on our board. But she has these magnets that she created of the state of Arkansas, and the kids came in and they painted, and they're learning about Arkansas, where they live at the same time. And so we really want to offer programming that's diverse, that, is also a way for kids to explore, like you said earlier, maybe things that they like and that they're good at, but also maybe things that they like and they're not so good at, So we just had, we partnered with Cherokee Nation and the Marshalls Museum, and we did a basket weaving class.
I saw that.
It
looked so good. I saw pictures.
It was amazing. And you had parents that were super into it and the kids were into it, and you're learning something new all at the same time. So again, it's a level playing field. No one knows what they're doing, and we're all just in it, learning something new and having fun. So, programming this year, I think we're going to try to schedule out 8 events. Ashley Buckley, she's our new community outreach director, and she's really just focused on partnering, with whether it's, with organizations or businesses in town, but also really having a focus on, what kind of programming are we going to offer once we're built? And
can I ask what the timeline is?
For our build? Oh, goodness. This is a great question. And I have a meeting right after.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was like, oh,
no,
what is the timeline?
Right after this about exhibits. So our main thing right now is raising funds.
Yeah.
It's getting that community buy-in and really getting to, so we're past our 2 million mark, but we're trying to get to 3 in order to be eligible for a potential grant
Okay.
that could possibly fund up to 20% of our construction costs. So our construction costs are around $7.4 million. 20% of that could be funded if we get to $3 million and are eligible for this grant and receive the grant. So
And you're at just over $2 million
just
right
over
now.
2. So we need to get to 3.
And if people want to donate, or if people want to get involved in helping raise funds, how do they do that? We're going a different route.
No. Okay. So we do have a website that is fortkidschildrensmuseum.com.
Okay.
And then we have a Facebook page. You can always message us. What's wonderful about the grant that we're applying for is they accept pledges towards the match. So people can pledge, and pay things over time.
Mm-hmm.
So say, someone wants to give $1,000 and they want to spread that out over 5 years. They can do that. And so they're not having to pay the full $1,000 up front.
Mm-hmm.
They could pay along the way. Or say you want to give $50, you can pay that along the way. So there are lots of different options, but in terms of getting involved, just reach out to me. Find me on Facebook.
Sara Strom, Facebook. Find her, Fort Smith. That's where she lives.
Yes. Or message us over our Facebook platform or on our website. There's also you can sign up for our emails, but you can email us directly, and we see all of it.
Yeah.
So you can feel free just to reach out.
Okay.
But we're definitely, like I said earlier, just a grassroots effort, and really we're trying to raise the funds.
Yeah.
So, but with that being said, so we're working with an architecture firm here in Fort Smith, MAHG. So they have been doing our renderings. We're planning on a 20,000 square foot building. It's going to have 10,000 square feet of exhibit space. And we're working with a $7.4 million construction budget, but our total capital campaign is $16.3 million.
Okay.
So exhibits are expensive.
Yeah.
Very
They sure
expensive.
are.
They sure are.
They sure
People are like, why are they so expensive? I'm like, I guess the fabrication is, and then
the installation probably.
and installation
upkeep.
and upkeep and all of that. So children's museums, they are an investment. But I do think that they're worth investing in.
Yeah.
But we are working towards 3. And then our plan is to get our construction costs, and then we'll break ground.
Got it.
So that way we're not, trying to pay for our construction crew and all that. Like, we want to have the funds and then break ground.
Yeah.
So we're working hard.
So you're doing multiple things at one time right now. You're raising the funds, you're doing the grant,
Mm-hmm.
you're already getting out in the community and doing programming so people are aware.
Yeah.
And you still have the pop-up over at the bakery district,
we
right?
have a pop-up at the bakery
I
district.
see people over there all the time playing in that space at the bakery district.
It is amazing. I will say, whenever we had the idea, I really didn't know, and we get comments all the time whenever I'm down there. A dad said to us, he said, I know that this seems like a small thing. He was like, but it's such a big thing to me and my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing the impact that space is having. So if you think about that space,
Mm-hmm.
and then you think about a space like what Fort Kids could be, I mean, I truly feel like this is a huge need.
Yeah.
And it's a need that our community really, really sees and really wants and wants to support.
Yeah. And I mean, let's be honest, like you were saying earlier, accessibility. I mean, not everybody can drive an hour and a half or 2.5 hours to go to a museum with their kids for a day. Exactly. And depending on their ages, it can be kind of a hassle, and to have a museum here in town, I think it's just great. And when I go to the bakery district, it is small, it is a small pop-up, but it's not stressful. It's not stressful. The parents go and they chill and they talk to each other and their kids are playing, and you don't have to really worry about it being too crowded or where'd my kid go. It's an open space where the kids are visible, and I love that. That's really great.
I think that what you point out in saying that it's not stressful is something that we're really focused on whenever we build, the larger space. We want it to be a great experience for the adults.
Yeah.
I want it to feel like a hug.
Oh,
And like,
I love
oh
that.
my gosh, you can come in and just breathe
Feel like a
for a
hug.
minute,
That's brilliant.
like that the parent or the caregiver, the grandparents, like there's just this big embrace.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to say, I can like sit here for a minute and not have to think about an activity or not think about picking up my living room.
The thought might still be in the back of your mind, but it's in the back now, not in the front.
Not in the front. And we're not making new messes.
But I mean, let's be real, being a parent is stressful enough without leaving your home. So I think that's so wonderful. And, I first met you a few months ago. And we kind of, some people from the CVB, Ashley Backert, the executive director, myself, and our experiences manager, Olin, we got together with you guys to just kind of hear about what was going on. And you showed us the plans and walked us through the exhibits and everything. And one thing that I absolutely love, you guys were so thoughtful about accessibility, so thoughtful about sensory play, kids with disabilities. Can you talk a little bit about your plans? And I know that these plans right now are very preliminary. Yes. This is kind of draft one, right, for the museum. And they'll kind of grow and morph and change. But can you talk a little bit about why that's important to you and what it looks like right now in the process?
I think one of the things about Fort Kids that we talk about as a board is we just want every kid to have the opportunity to be a kid. And so much of what I see, especially, whenever I pull kiddos for counseling, there's a stigma. And there's a part of, I know so many that feel like, gosh, I'm not normal and I just want to be normal. And that is very much in the back of my mind all the time because I want all kids to feel like they belong at Fort Kids and all adults to feel like they belong at Fort Kids. And so it's been really important for us to have community partners like the Arkansas College of Health Education. They are helping us to make Fort Kids accessible through universal design. We have an incredible vice president. Her name is Mandy Chilchin, and she's a pediatric play therapist. She's co-owner of Learn, Play, Grow. And I was actually just talking to a wonderful person. Her name's Emily Vernon, and she does the Griffin Project, and they specialize with kiddos with neurodivergence. And so, one of the things that we do want at Fort Kids is a sensory space. We want to make sure disability seen and unseen, they don't matter. We want to make sure that we hold space and meet all visitors that come into Fort Kids right where they are. And let them know that where they are, it's enough. And that they are perfect and whole and created just how they're meant to be created. How God created them is perfect. And so that's really the experience that we want, at Fort Kids and the way that we've planned the design. The pretend play area is going to have a trauma-informed lens. So like I said earlier, kids process all their feelings through play. It's a huge way that they really work through big feelings, small feelings. And so, the idea of pretend play where they get to really kind of, without even knowing it, get to kind of create some resolve around maybe any trauma exposure that they've had, and they don't even know it. And they're also getting this physical therapy, this occupational therapy without them knowing it. And so that's a really beautiful thing.
I think that's amazing because, my husband and I were involved in foster care. And so we, work with a child who has trauma, and people assume that it's easy to get appointments with occupational therapists or play therapists or for kids who are under the age of 6, for example. And it's really not that easy, and to have a space where people can go and play and help their kids through these things in a space that feels not stressful, like you were saying earlier. I think that is so valuable.
Mhm.
It's so valuable for adults and kids alike,
Mhm.
to be able to play, for the adults to model
Mhm.
and help kids work through conflict, help
Mhm.
them work through, with other kids, but also
Yeah.
with conflicts within themselves
Yes.
too.
Yes.
So I love that, that you guys are bringing in these professionals, these
Mhm.
experts to advise you in
Mhm.
these ways. That's really wonderful.
It's been a group effort, certainly a collaboration. Like our board, but also we have committee members that just pour their gifts into Fort Kids. You
Yeah.
know what they have to offer, their lens, their perspective. Brittany Watson is on our board, and she's the current principal at Morrison Elementary, and she's been in the Fort Smith Public Schools for years. And like I was talking about earlier with literacy, like literacy is her jam. It's what she studies, and so she has that lens. So I do feel like the framework for Fort Kids is expansive because of all the people working together to build it. So it's just not one, it's so many working together. But, back to just the design and the accessibility, for Fort Kids, I think it's what we all want is a place to belong.
Yeah.
And I think that our hope is to really create this space with intention. Children's museums for a long time, they're moving towards this universal design piece, but a lot of times it's implemented after the fact. So really Fort Kids gets to be, really on the forefront of doing it from the beginning, of looking at this from the beginning. And more children's museums it's a trend for children's museums to be moving in this direction.
That's great. I mean, and it's a lot of times we don't think about things like accessibility because we have the privilege of not having to think about them. But when something happens, or you have an accident, or you have a child and that child has, is neurodivergent, for example, then it's like, oh, snap. Wow.
Yeah.
It's perspective, right? And so I know the kids that I've worked with, who have had, anything from neurodivergence to mental health diagnoses to dyslexia, dysgraphia, like you name it, right?
Yes.
They are very aware from a very young age of this feeling of difference, of being different. And kids who don't have that they don't feel that sense of difference. And at least in the same way, I think everyone experiences a feeling of being other somehow at different levels for different reasons throughout life. But I think y'all's intentionality with being inclusive and accessible in this universal design is really great for those kids who deal with it every single day, every minute of the day.
I just want to break down barriers.
Yeah.
I want for every kid just to feel that the level, like they're all just kids getting to be kids.
Yeah.
And just for a moment, like regardless of their home life or background, that they get to be themselves, like they get to experience themselves in a new, fresh light.
Yeah. And everyone can have a shared experience. It's not, some kids can do this and some kids can't, but we can all do this. And having that opportunity builds community among children, which is important, builds those relationships and the confidence and that feeling of I belong.
And empathy too.
Yes. Yeah. And empathy, talking about, you mentioned earlier resilience. You said resilience is taught. It's a learned thing. And same with empathy. Kids learn empathy from modeling, right? And from coming in contact with other people who aren't like them and having to understand what it would be like to be in someone else's shoes. And so empathy it's huge. It's a huge skill.
And we think about too, we have a military presence here in Fort Smith. And, you have kids that are coming in that are completely new.
Yeah.
And may not even speak the same language. And so we do also want to design for kids languages and a lot of opportunities.
That's my passion.
For seeing what other cultures, what's special for other cultures. We met with someone and she was so excited about Fort Kids. And she said, what if we do like a United Nations, at Fort Kids? And kids get to learn about
that
other countries.
Be so cool.
And, it's so neat.
Yeah.
It's really, it is a world of possibility at Fort Kids.
Yeah. And, I love languages. I've always loved languages. And I worked as an educator at a multilingual school.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really cool. I loved it. But going back to play as being the universal language for kids, that is how they learn language is through play. And so when you have a child who doesn't speak English or who's trying to learn another language in another country, that is so essential to put them or give them the opportunity to play with native speakers.
Yep.
As kids, they don't get embarrassed like we do. They don't get bashful if oh no, did I say that right?
Yeah.
they just try.
Yeah.
And they play. And yeah, especially with this international community coming in, I just, the opportunity there is just,
I love, Brene Brown says that we're hardwired for connection. Human beings are. And so we're always just looking for these ways to connect. And so Fort Kids is really another way to bring our community together and to connect.
Yeah. This is just, I'm so excited.
We're excited.
And I can't wait to hear more about your programming that you said you have 8.
So we're doing 8 events. We're still kind of planning them out. Usually we do a fort building competition.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And so we're working on that this year. We're going to have Palooza, which is actually coming up on April 5th. So Pedal Kids USA will be coming down from Northwest Arkansas, and it will be held at John Bell Park. And they set up an obstacle course. It's for ages 2 to 9 years old. There are adaptive bikes that kiddos can have down there. They can bring their own bikes. So it's really just, a nod to, the mobility movement that's happening in Fort Smith and developing those gross motor skills, and also just, giving kids something to do on the weekends where they get to be with other kids and build confidence.
And it's outside.
And hopefully, the adult that they come with gets to experience something with them. So we're really excited about Pedalpalooza coming up April 5th. And we're working hard to kind of, again, create that diverse programming. I know that we're going to have something STEM related, but we haven't worked out those details yet. We're still just kind of figuring out next steps. Last year, we did a really neat event with foster kiddos and their foster parents, their foster family. We had Arts on Main. They hosted us to do an art event. It was like a little painting class, and there was a prompt, and then all of the artwork was displayed at Art on the Border.
Oh, cool.
And so it was,
and that's over at AIC, right?
Yeah. So it was just a nice collaboration. And Arts on Main is incredible. That's the thing, is we have so many great libraries. We have so many wonderful amenities here in Fort Smith, as well as resources. And we just want Fort Kids to be, another amenity and another resource that we get to have.
Well, thank you so much, Sara, for coming and for sharing just your vision and your passion. I mean, I feel like when I talk to you, I just can feel it, how passionate you are about this museum and about just children in general and their, their health and their development, their wellness and their learning. And so thank you for your work, and just thanks for coming on and talking with me about it today.
Thank you so much for having me. Truly, it is the work of our community, our board members, our advisory council. people that are kind of in it just every single day with us, just trying to move this mission forward. We could not be more grateful.
Yeah.
And the people that pour their time and energy. And again, like if people want to get involved, they can visit us on our Facebook page, Fort Kids Children's Museum. They can visit our Instagram. They can visit our website, fortkidschildrensmuseum.com. And they can just email us, message us. We see it.
Well, I feel super excited to be able to see this all come to fruition. It's an exciting time
Thank you.
to be in Fort Smith and see all these things coming up.
It is an exciting time. I'm, as I've grown up here, like I just want Fort Smith to thrive.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. And for anybody out there who might be interested in being on the podcast, feel free to go to discoverfortsmith.com/podcast. And there is an interest form on that site there that you can complete and contact us about being on the show. So thanks for watching, and thanks again, Sarah.
Thank you, Emily.